I've been running every day for a little over 7 months now, and I was inspired to do so by a channel called Hella Good, who is now on over 1,000 days of running in a row. I thought it'd be a fun challenge to try to run every day for a year, and I thought it'd be a good way to build discipline and to stay productive each day. So I decided on doing at least 2K of continuous running every day for at least 10 minutes. And obviously over time that's built up to more kilometers, but there's been some benefits I didn't anticipate. So I thought I'd make this video to explain what I've gained from this experience so far. So the first and probably most obvious benefit that running every day gives you is discipline. This is most obvious in the beginning when it's not quite a habit yet and you have to build it up. And for me, this was quite hard because for whatever reason, I decided to do a 24K run for my 24th birthday, which was day one. I got injured from that. So I have about 8K left. Definitely can feel some knee pain now in my left knee. The next couple of weeks were way harder than they should have been. But anyway, pushing through that develops discipline. And even though it's a habit for me now, there's still days where, and I think this will always be the case, where I feel fatigued or I don't want to go outside, I don't want to run at all. And obviously that's where you're training your discipline. That's been really great because it's given me more confidence that when things aren't going well, I can still push through, I can still get up, go do what I have to do, you know. And that might sound like a cliche or it might sound unimportant, but I think it is important. I think it's good to know that you can do that. And when it comes to building new habits into my life, they seem comparatively easier now because I think like, okay, I've run this many days in a row and it's like, things just don't seem as hard. You know, eating cleaner or quitting caffeine if you need to. It's just nice knowing you can go through those caffeine withdrawals for 2 weeks and it's not going to be as hard as running every day for this long. You know you can do better. Running every day gives you that confidence that you can make other changes in your life that are positive because they just don't seem as hard. So a really big benefit I feel like I get from running every day is this feeling of a mental recalibration. It's similar to meditation, where in meditation, you're not trying to stop thoughts and emotions, you're training yourself to let them be there and not get caught up with them. And you can get a real sense of freedom and mental clarity from that. And running gives me a similar effect where I can just run, I don't need to think about anything. It's sort of distancing my mind from any worries I have during the day or any problems I feel like I might have. It's just an hour where I can run in nature and not think about anything. I feel like I get this recalibration from that, or a reset. Afterwards, usually it's way easier to think through problems, or problems I think I did have, I realize aren't problems at all, and I don't need to worry about anything. And that's a really good feeling to have. So running feels particularly effective for me on days where I'm a little bit stressed or I'm working hard at something and I feel like I need a break. And I can look forward to having that break in the afternoon or at sunset, which is when I usually run. But I still think it's useful for me to run daily because some days I don't realize that I might actually need a release valve and that it'll actually be useful. Or I might really want to work hard on something all day and don't feel like stopping it all, but having a break is probably going to be more effective. So in that scenario, a forced break is really useful. And because I've committed to running every day for a year, I know I'm guaranteed to have that every day. But of course, there's other ways to take your mind off things like watching a TV show or reading a book. But for me, running just seems so effective, I think, simply because it feels so good to do, because you're moving your body, you're outside. And really, this is probably where the physiological effects that running has on your brain come in. So we all know that exercise in general releases endorphins and gives you that feeling of euphoria, which is great. But there's so much more than that when you look into it. For example, aerobic exercise promotes the production of serotonin, which we obviously want. And I think it's interesting to learn how that works because it'll give you an appreciation of how important exercise is for your mental health. So tryptophan, which is an amino acid, is the precursor for serotonin, which you may already know. What you might not know is that tryptophan is also a precursor for kynurenine. So these two metabolic pathways compete with each other for tryptophan since they both require it. And of course, there's biological influences that swing the balance either way. So this is the interesting bit for me. Aerobic exercise makes this serotonin pathway more likely because aerobic exercise makes tryptophan more bioavailable to be transported into the brain. And once it's in the brain, it forms serotonin. On the other hand, stress and chronic low-grade inflammation cause tryptophan to be more likely to go into the kynurenine pathway, meaning you get less serotonin. not only do you get less serotonin the more kynurenine is formed, but kynurenine can then form two other molecules, one being quinolinic acid, which is neurotoxic, and this is what's highly associated with depression and other neurological and psychiatric disorders. But if you're doing aerobic exercise, a different molecule can be formed from kynurenine called kynurenic acid, which is actually neuroprotective. And so I find this crazy, right? Because this just shows how directly exercise, specifically aerobic exercise, can influence your mental health and how much depression you may feel. And this is just one mechanism by which aerobic exercise, such as running, can stave off depression. So another really interesting way that aerobic exercise can help your mental health is through the production of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF, which facilitates the growth of new neurons, meaning you can literally grow your brain. And it also promotes neuroplasticity, which is the ability of the brain to remodel itself, which you want because you want to be resilient towards stresses and be able to adapt to different things in your life. By the way, I'm getting all this info from a video that Rhonda Patrick produced where she talks about how exercise influences depression. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff, links in the description. I've also found that running every day has been useful in situations I didn't expect. Like, for example, I traveled through France and Spain at the end of last year and I was running every day there. And it was just such a cool way to experience the cities I was in. I got to run around the neighborhoods I was staying in and explore them in ways I wouldn't have otherwise. For example, in Paris, we stayed near the Luxembourg Gardens, and every day I ran there was like 100 other runners that went there. And it was just such a cool experience because I felt like a local in a way, you know, because I was running with all the other local runners there. And yeah, I just wouldn't have had that otherwise if I wasn't running every day. I don't think I would have ran overseas if I didn't have to. So I think it's worth mentioning the physical benefits as well. I'm probably the fittest I've ever been in my life. I'm less prone to injuries than I've ever been, I think, because you build up strength in your muscles and tendons over time. I haven't measured it, but I think I'm probably more insulin sensitive and more tolerant to carbs than I was before, which is great. If you put aside all the other benefits I've talked about in this video and you're just thinking about the physical side of things, you know, I'm sure you could say that running every day isn't the best exercise schedule for physical health because it's probably better to get a rest day every now and then. But for me, that's sort of besides the point because running every day has allowed me to be more consistent than I've ever been in my life with running. You know, I'd be on and off for months with running in the past, but now I'm way more consistent, obviously. And that's because you can't use any excuses to not run. Like, I'll lose that streak I've built up, the daily streak, and that might sound silly, but it's a really powerful tool to have. And at the end of the day, for me, it doesn't matter how many days in a row I've been running, but the fact that it keeps me consistent is. And I guess the analogy is like, you could think of the perfect diet, but if you can't follow it, then it's sort of useless. You know, you could think of the perfect exercise routine. For running, for example, you could run 6 days a week, 1 day rest, and that might be better. I don't know. But if you don't keep to that schedule, then it's sort of useless. And running every day has forced me to be more consistent and learn how to run properly and learn how to train properly. I'm doing way higher mileage than I've ever done in my life. And honestly, I don't know if I ever would have done any of that if I didn't start running every day. If you're inspired to try this out, to run it every day, I'd say just commit to 30 days, for example, and see how it affects your life. Just start out with easy-paced running to begin with, low mileage, which you sort of need to do just not to get injured, and see how it affects you. And yeah, if you do start running more because of this video, let me know. I'd love to hear that. I'll be so stoked. And yeah, thanks for watching.